Welcome back to the Musician's Business Plan series. I'm Dr. Maya from Market Your Purpose, and this is the fifth video and the last video in this series. Today we're going to be finishing out the business plan, and I'm going to actually build a couple slides live on this video on Google Slides. I prefer to use Google Slides and then use the export function to make myself a PDF. That's how I like to share these with any potential investor, sponsor, or somebody that you are looking to work with. When you change something into a PDF, it preserves your formatting exactly as it was in whatever document that was. So I do this with Word documents, with presentations. That's what I'd recommend, just kind of on that little technical side of how do I actually send this to someone. So we're going to build a couple slides here in Google Slides, and then just at the end of the video, I'll export it so that you can see how we save that file. So look out for that as just kind of an extra layer on this video today. But let's jump into finishing out the musician's business plan and the last few bullet points that we had in that original outline in video 1. So I'm just going to run through these bullet points real quick, and then we'll actually go through some of them on the video today, where I'll show you how we start building those out in a presentation format for your business plan. So some of the things we'll include today are a press kit, your website, any content that you have so far. What I recommend is doing kind of a preview, pretty much with any of the information in your business plan. Consider it a brief preview and a summary of what's going on with you, and then link out to more detailed documents as needed. So that would include something like your financials, which we covered in another video in this series, linking out to that Excel spreadsheet, or even better, that Google sheet that everybody can share and look at. Make sure you make it view only. If you're sharing this with several different people, it's always a good idea to make anything you share view only, so no edits accidentally get made. That's another bonus tip for this video. You'll go into merchandise if you have any, if you're planning on it. If you're not, and it's not a part of your picture right now, then don't put the slide. It's as easy as that. You would rather have less slides than any kind of slide that is feeling not finished, or God forbid says not applicable. You don't want to just take this list of things literally and put it all in there just because. Think about this critically in terms of what you need to have in your business plan. It's always better to have less slides. So just think about that. Think about linking out to other documents, linking out to your website, maybe even having a password protected area of your website that hosts all of these different extras that go along with your business plan. That makes you look extremely professional. Once you've talked about merchandise, if you have it, you're going to go into any touring plans you have, especially if that's part of the projects that you're proposing. Now, you can do this in two different ways. In the section where you're proposing the projects and giving the financials, you can explain those touring plans there. If this is not something you're seeking funding for and didn't cover it in the upcoming projects section, which is covered in a previous video, then you would include those touring plans as sort of an indication that you will be supporting your own career, that you're doing something already. Maybe you're actually requesting support or sponsorship for that tour that you're already doing, and using that as a hook to get somebody interested in what you're doing. So depending on what you're exactly doing with live performances and touring is where you will put that in the business plan. Again, this is sort of a suggestion and a listing of possible things you're going to include in the plan. They don't necessarily all have to be included if they're not applicable, and they don't necessarily have to be included in the order that I'm putting them in this presentation. Think critically. This is your career. This is your art. So make this your own. These are just the typical things we find in business plans, and what those people you're talking with trying to get money or investment or support from are going to expect to see at least some of these keywords, at least some of these key slides. Moving on, you're going to talk about your fan base if you have one. Now, this is not the same thing as your imaginary fan in a marketing situation, or the your market section of your business plan, which everyone needs to have. Now, those are really thinking more about the numbers on how many people may we reach with my art, with my tour, with my music, and how does that impact your possible return on investment. That's different than talking about your existing fan base. So this is where you would do a slide with maybe 2 or 3 really big numbers, maybe blocked out with images, a screenshot from social, saying something like, 15,000 fans and followers on Instagram, average of, 3 comments per post per user. things like that. Get your analytics together on your fan base. Show pictures of your fan base. If you've got real life pictures from a show, use that as your background image for that slide. Use that as an accent to that slide. We don't want to have pictures in place of information, but we want to have pictures to enhance the information and make it really simple and really easy to really just scan through your business plan. I hate to break it to you, but there's nobody out there that is as invested in your career as you are. And so they're probably not sitting there, I'm really sorry to say, looking at every single comma and looking at every single bullet point, reading through every single word. This is really to entice them to want to know more. And you're really going to close these types of deals in meeting situations where you're talking through things verbally with someone. This alone is not going to sell your sponsorship or your funding deal, your investment. This is meant to be kind of almost a brochure for a further conversation. So just another quick tip for you on that. Talk about your fan base, what you have done so far with the fan base, and give some pictures if you can. Now, the next thing, if I don't go through my slides too quickly, is to talk about your artist partnerships or your support partnerships that you have so far. So if you have a guitar company that's sponsoring you, a local studio that you get free recording time in, other artists that may be part of your crew or your collective that are supporting each other, you want to show the fact that you do have that support available and that you're already doing it with the resources that you already have. Then you're going to talk a little bit more about that business side. If you have sponsors or investors, same kind of thing. It's giving that social proof. Look at all these other people who believe in what I'm doing. Don't you want to join the club, right? So let's get into kind of how we make slides for each one of these things. And I'm not going to cover all of them because you need to pick and choose what slides you need. And at a certain point, it starts to become redundant, right? It's like, put information about this. Here's how you do it. Now just you need to go and do it. So we're going to go through a few examples here, and I'll build one or two with you on this video. And then we're going to end out our series on musicians business planning. Let's get into how you show off your website and your content. As you remember, we've been using the band Apple Quarantini for our fake example of a band that might be doing a business plan. And here's what I would maybe suggest as a slide that you'd put together. It would look exactly like this, of course, with your branding. Apple Quarantini has had a fully functioning website with weekly original content for 5 years. And now you apply that to yourself. If you haven't had a website yet, maybe you're asking for resources to build one. And then you're gonna wanna talk about what kind of content do I have that's ready to put on a website. If you have absolutely nothing done at all and you don't plan on talking about it, then don't include this slide. I would recommend having some kind of slide in this area to show that you're actually a real musician or band that's doing something in the world. And most of us do have a portfolio website available to share. If you don't, I suggest you work on it, and you can look at our How to Build a Squarespace website tutorial video for more information on that. Coming back to this though, as we share our website and content, you might want to give a little bit of an intro sentence. You're going to go ahead and link out to that site. Again, I'm just telling you, it's kind of a billboard for further information. And so this is linking you out to the website. Here is a sneak peek. Then you would create another slide with your sneak peek. Now this is a couple screenshots from recent Zoom meetings with my students. So shout out if you see yourself on here. But these are basically screenshots. It could be any screenshot. It should be of your website, of your content. I'm just showing you kind of how we would throw the pictures on in there. And maybe just give a little bit of a preview of, your homepage here, maybe your playlist or your music that you're sharing, and maybe, the Book Me Now page or something like that. You're just giving a taste, and then you can link each of these pictures on out to your website as well for further exploration. You may do a similar slide for merchandise, where let's just poke out of here real quick and see kind of how this is being built. We're having really just a text box. And this can say anything you want. So Apple Quarantini has sold over, $10,000 of merchandise in the last year, including the items below, right? And so then you might say, okay, here's a picture of the first item. You're going to grab a text box here, maybe even align it down at the bottom here. It wasn't quite wide enough. So I'm always very cognizant of, you see these lines that are coming up to help you. Be cognizant of how things align. Be cognizant of your text style, your font, how big it is. These are my brand fonts. So again, going back to that branding thing, every time I have a body font, it's going to be Lotto because that's my chosen brand font. So let's make sure that what we're typing in here is Lotto. It's actually not. You can see here that it's Arial, so we'll change that in just a second. So this can maybe be mugs, 5,000 units sold. Something like that. And then you'll want to style that text up. But again, it's not Lotto, which is what I want it to be. So I'm going to change that. It's a small, tiny thing, but if you pay attention to your branding and really go through and edit your business plan, you are really going to get a leg up on, I would say, 80% of everybody else because people don't care about it. You would be surprised how many papers or business plans or assignments, even emails and things like that in the business world that are not proofread. And then if they have a chance to choose somebody who has taken the time to care enough about this, if you're asking me for 10 grand, 25 grand, run spell check. You know what I mean? Like, how much effort are you going to put forward when actually recording the project if you can't even spell check what you're doing for me on a business plan, right? And so just keep those kind of things in mind because people will judge you for that. People will just throw your stuff in the no pile and move on, So that's kind of how we would do this is maybe think about the merchandise, what kind of information you want to share. And then if you've already got it kind of figured out how you want it to look, just do a copy paste and then pull that on over and try to align it, like I said, with what's above it, with what's beside it. It'll give you the lines. It'll show you how to do that. See how it has that red line? And it should be pretty much aligned, right? And then so we would say, okay, I don't know, pins. 55,000 units sold. Okay, so whatever that information is, you put that in there for your merchandise. And you may even have a link that says for more information. And you can send them to that private area of your website talking about all the numbers on your merchandise. As you move through here, you might want to go down into that touring slide. I just wanted to show you how I built this. When you actually view this, it looks like kind of, oh, that's kind of a cool background image. Now, I just pulled this, 5 minutes ago to put it in here. So you would obviously spend more time to make sure there's not a line there that you don't want, things like that. But as you're looking at this slide, you can see it's a West Coast Australian tour route, so it kind of gives that feeling of what you're trying to go for. And then you would link out using these to view the details, again, maybe on a private part of your website. That would be a really cool thing to do. You could even use this to link out to a financial spreadsheet about your tour, just depending on what you've done so far in your business plan presentation. The idea is not to repeat information here, but maybe to add color or use this as an explanation if you haven't talked about touring yet and it is a big part of your income or the opportunity for investment. So just going back to show you kind of how I did that picture, need to click through because it's the bottom layer. There we go. Now that is one important thing to know is you want this to be, and when you hit arrange order, you want to make sure that that one is all the way in back of everything else. So when I put this in here, I hit send to back, and that means my logo and this text is always going to be on top of that because it is in the back. This was a full color picture when I dropped it in here, and all I did was I went to format options. It brings up this. And then let me move me out of the way for a minute here. What I did was I recolored it to light 1. You could choose, maybe if one of these goes with your branding, you can do that. I just knew I wanted it to be very much like in the background as just kind of a mood setter to show like this is a tour. So I would suggest those little touches, not just a blank slide with text, but like what kind of extra touches can you give it with an image or whatever else. Now, the other thing I wanted to do was make it a little more transparent. So I went down here to adjustments and then transparency. Look, I turned it almost all the way up. This is what it looks like if you mess with it, right? So we want it to be much more transparent than that so it really fades out into the background. So I like the way that looks. And then the other little thing I wanted to show you is as you click on this, oops, I clicked off of it. You want to go up to here to this little top control, and you can move the angle of the photo or whatever image you have in here if you want to kind of move the angle of it so it's not straight up and down. So that's what I did there. Yeah, so I'll just move that back. You just kind of angle it how you want it. I just want to show you some little tips and tricks along the way. So, your slides are starting to look pretty cool. You drop things in here as you need to. So, all you do if you want to add an image in here, let's say there's an image that you might want to add right here with your fans, having a great time or something like that. So let's go to show you how to do that. And you just go insert image. And then let's just say, do I have something recent that's on my drive? Let's see what's here. Just to show you, it could be in your Drive folder. Maybe you have a great fan base of construction workers or something. You know, we play construction rock. I don't know. You can just drag it straight over from there and then, you know, edit at will. As I showed you, you go to format options and you can edit that. You can resize it. You can use this control to kind of angle it. Now, you know, use your judgment on that, but that's how you add a photo in. And so I definitely recommend kind of adding as much imagery and stuff as you can. And I showed you in a previous video how to use the overlays to really make that sort of washed out feeling so that you can put things on top of it and text on top of it. If you need further information on that, go back to that video. You basically just have a shape that's over it, that's a transparent white shape, and you just layer it over the top. So let's go through the last couple of items that we have to cover on this, and then you are done with your Musicians Business Planning series. So what are the last couple components that we might want to think about and build those types of slides for? Some of these can be combined into one slide, and in fact, I'd recommend doing that. Some of them can be skipped depending on what you're doing. So again, this is a guideline, it's not a rule. It's really just kind of a menu of the different types of things to include in your business plan. We definitely want to talk about successes and challenges and goals in any business plan, whether that's within the arts and music or not. We want to show what we've done so far, what we've sold so far, and try to be specific with those numbers and with those success stories with what you're trying to ask for or move forward in your career. If it has nothing to do with what you're asking for or the project that you're doing right now, it may not be the best choice of story to tell. So when you're telling those stories of successes and challenges, really try to tailor it to that particular situation, right? And so you do this in a job interview, like for those of us who still have to go out and get day jobs or things like that, and many people use that as a way to bridge into a full-time career in music. There's nothing wrong with that at all. So when you are in these job interviews, think about this ahead of time. What do they always ask? What's a problem that you've solved at work? And how did you solve it? You know, what's a challenge that you have faced in getting along with your coworkers or something like that, right? What's a challenge you faced in your career? So in that job interview sense, you practice ahead of time, tailored to what the situation might be in that new job to like kind of slip in there that you'll be able to handle it, right? So let's say you are, I'm kind of hungry right now. I'm going to use Little Caesars pizza. Do you guys have that where you are? Type in the comments if you guys love Little Caesars. That crazy bread, I'm telling you, I've loved that since I was like 6 years old. That crazy bread, it's like that comfort food for me. So anyway, now that my skeletons are out of the closet there on the crazy bread, let's say you're trying to work at Little Caesars, right? And they ask you, what is a challenge that you faced in your work life and how did you overcome that challenge? Maybe you're going to think ahead to what might be a challenge I would face at Little Caesars. Okay, you know, there's a line out the door of customers and everybody's getting agitated because we're behind on our pizza production, right? Or something like that. So you may say, I faced a challenge when I was working at Macy's because there were too many people in line and not enough help at the cashier's desk, and people were trying to check out because it was really busy for Memorial Day weekend. We had a big sale, and the way that I solved that challenge was, number one, I remained calm and really just became extra friendly with each customer and tried to give them a little bit more conversation than I normally would to take their mind off the fact that they were waiting. There was nothing that I could do to bring another staff member out at that time. So the way that I faced that challenge was I just was a friendly face that made the situation feel better for everybody that was in the line. And I got the whole line laughing, right? So that's a fake story that I just made up off the top of my head right now, but see how it's aligned with sort of that customer service functionality of that job you're trying to get free crazy bread? If this doesn't work out, maybe I'll do that. Anyway, so you want to kind of tailor it. So if it is somebody that you're asking for tour support with, you want to show some tour success or at least some local live shows that you've been successful at, and now you'd like to take that on the road, and to do that you need their help, right? And so that's kind of getting into your goals a little bit. So you might do, you know, maybe successes and challenges on one slide and then a big slide about goals. You know, all three on one slide. It's up to you. It's up to what your business plan has to achieve for you. We talked about goals sort of at the beginning of this series in terms of what are you asking for? What is the project or the endeavor that you're trying to do with this business plan. So we don't want to talk about goals in terms of like, you know, I'd really like to lose this last 12 pounds. You know, someday I want to buy a home in the Hamptons. Those are great goals, but we're talking about goals in terms of this business plan. So really bringing that back into focus, staying very focused with what you're asking for and what you're sharing. So I kind of, are you hearing a theme here? Be very focused with these. Assumptions, not everybody needs. This is a little bit more of like the straight up business to business plan where, you know, you're, you know, assuming the market doesn't crash, assuming that, you know, a vaccine is created for this particular virus and everybody gets to go outside again, right? If we've all been experiencing something like that. You know, assumptions, assuming that Coachella happens this year, we're going to have a booth there and here's what we're going to be doing, you know? So if you have assumptions like that, where the success of what you're proposing depends on it, you want to go ahead and put that there because you don't want to seem like you're hiding anything, or if something goes wrong, you want to have covered it already, right? Then you might want to loop back to the financial situation. And this is more of a summary financial slide. You should have covered the details of the financials and the opportunity earlier on in your business plan in several places. And so go back and watch parts 1 through 4 for where we're including that and how we're including that. This financials slide is much more about summarizing the information. So we're asking you for X amount. We're going to do these projects. According to the financial projections, we stand to make this much based on our target market. And you're kind of starting to wrap up some of the things that you've shared in the business plan, but really focusing on that financials end of it. Here are the different numbers that we are predicting and how much we stand to possibly make out of doing this project together with you, Mr. Sponsor or Mrs. Sponsor, right? And then you kind of move from that into your final slide, into your concluding slide. And I would definitely recommend, if you've got artwork, if you've got a logo, feature that pretty prominently. It's really that final call to action, which we would abbreviate CTA. So if you hear people talking about CTA, especially for your website or social media advertising, you usually use it in that context of marketing and advertising. But again, we're trying to ask someone to take action for us right now on this business plan. So that concluding slide is really this call to action, and hopefully enticing them to call you, email you, schedule a meeting with you, whatever that might be for the next step. So you're identifying the next step and you're motivating that person to take the next step. It could be as simple as call us today before it's too late. Call us today before we're snatched up by Pepsi. You know, it depends on your brand's personality. You can make it kind of cheeky like that if that's your brand's personality. If you are, you know, a serious concert pianist, maybe jokey joke is not the right approach on this concluding slide. It depends on your brand. So go with your brand, showcase your brand, and tell that person what to do next. Call me now at, you know, 555-1234, right? Like put that on your closing slide. You might want to consider the possibility of creating a landing page on your website to take people to at this point. Visit us now to get involved, right? And then they land on a page in your website that has a specific piece for this person that's interested in investing. It's probably a big headline, some imagery, and just a form that says, so you're ready to support us? Boom, put the form in, right? Put the information in the form. Or, you know, if you've already been talking to somebody, you've been having personal meetings, put your phone number on there as a follow-up, or put, hey, text me, WhatsApp me, like put your WhatsApp handle on there. Whatever you want them to do at that point is what you do for your CTA. That concludes our series on the musician's business plan. My name is Maya Wells. I'm from Market Your Purpose. Thank you for joining us, and let us know what you think in the comments below.